Welcome to Spit Bucket. This week we're looking at the serious end of Bollinger, and we have with us Stephen Leroux from Bollinger. Stephen, welcome to Spit Bucket.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, we've got R.D. and it is the 50th anniversary, so take us through R.D.
Yes, 50th anniversary of the commercial launch of R.D., which was launched in 1961 from the 1952 vintage. And that was a major innovation by Madame Bollinger, who was the lady president of Bollinger between 1941 and 1971. And she came up with the idea that regular customers and Bollinger fans should have another experience of some particular vintages which had proven the capacity to age over normal time. And she said, well, right, let's have an experience. We'll take a Bollinger vintage, we'll keep it for an extended age on lees, and by that time the contact between the yeasts and the wine will develop further complexion in the aromas, and by that time we don't need as much residual sugars, so we will do a low dosage. And that was basically invention of practically zero dosage champagne well before it became fashionable. So Madame Bollinger was very open-minded, very innovative lady, and Bollinger R.D. is really a tribute to her innovation.
I don't know if this is an urban myth or not, but I remember reading a long time ago that a lot of the champagne houses were starting to bring out their flagships and their icons and things, and someone came to Madame Bollinger and said, we need to do one of these, and she said, but we make the best possible wine we can already. How can we make anything better if we're doing the best we can? And so that, in fact, R.D. of course is effectively the same wine but different. It was a nice way to sort of to come up with a flagship that is in fact doesn't spoil the principle of already making the best possible wine with the Grand Marnier. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but...
Well, I think as sometimes for innovation, it takes a little detail, maybe a little suggestion of somebody, and I think Mrs. Bollinger was very open to suggestions from outside, from within the family, and also from regular customers, and also agents from around the world. So there's probably an element of truth in what you've said. I don't know the story to be precise, but I know that she basically said, right, we're talking about serious Bollinger connoisseurs that already understand the Bollinger style, which is quite complex. So we're going to push the exercise even further by doing the R.D. And R.D. is a bit a technical word. It's two letters, meaning recently disgorged. And it has become a myth in the world of wines. It's a bit like number 5 for Chanel. R.D. is Bollinger R.D. It's also James Bond favorites, by the way.
There you go.
So let's try.
I can think of nothing better.
So this is Bollinger R.D. 97.
Okay, and that's the current... You're moving to 99 fairly soon, but this is still current?
Absolutely. We're moving to 99 in the course of 2011.
Okay.
And let me just look at the date of disgorgement on the back label. It was disgorged on 2nd of July 2010, so really what we will call recently disgorged.
The principle is, of course, on lees rather than on cork.
That's right. Which doesn't prevent, of course, the wine from having a capacity to age after disgorgement.
A combination of both.
Absolutely. Sure. But what we call recently disgorged is basically the wine has been taken for a couple of years more on lees, and it's disgorged and ready to be consumed and enjoyed as such. But then, of course, it has a second evolution post-disgorgement. And then I would say pretty much to the own discernment and taste of each consumer of Bollinger to decide if they like a bit more aging after lees.
And 97 is an interesting vintage because it followed on from the fabulous 95s and the even more fabulous 96s, and so very few houses really looked at 97, and it got dismissed because of that in the market to a degree. You guys did it, Salon did it. There were a couple of terrific 97s, but they probably sort of got lost in the cracks in a sense, because then we had 98s, which was, and of course then on to 2002. But yet, when you look at this, you can see why the quality of 97 is.
Well, the thing, Ken, is Bollinger. We have quite a lot of points of differentiation. One of them is really strong is that we own the majority of our vineyards. We own approximately 70% of the vineyards that we need to produce a bottle of Bollinger. So, by definition, we're always going to find in every year bits and pieces with their own vineyards, which can produce great wines. So then whether we launch a Grand Année and then an RD every year is basically down to our own decision. We don't depend on the reputation of a vintage. We don't basically depend on the fact that champagne producers are going to say, right, this is a great year, let's do something. No, it's basically our own decision. Whether we think our harvests in our vineyards will express themselves, yes or no. And if it's yes, we will first of all launch a vintage and then an RD. The thing is, Bollinger needs time to express because the Pinot Noir from Grand Cru and Premier Cru going through barrel fermentation. And when it comes to Bollinger, Grand Année and RD, we're talking about 100% barrel fermentation. So it needs times to express. We're not making wine for very, very young enjoyment. We're making wine that needs to be aged in the lees to get complexion of the aromas. And we need at least 7 or 8 years on lees before Bollinger wine starts to express.
I mean, there's heaps of complexity in that, but it still comes across as fresh and
yes,
youthful.
Yes. Well, the thing,
it's quite amazing.
Don't forget also one thing, Ken, is that at Bollinger we only use what we call la cuvée, which is the first press.
Sure.
It's basically 80% of the first pressing of the grapes, meaning that 20% of the fruit, which is bloody expensive in Champagne, we don't use. So it's a financial loss, but for Bollinger we prefer making that short-term sacrifice in the view of a long-term result.
You guys put in place your Charter of Ethics, oh gosh, must be 10 or 15 years ago, I guess now.
20 years ago nearly,
20 years?
1992. That was Christian Bizot, together with Guillaume Montgolfier. They came up with a document which was basically nothing new, but it was just putting it black on white. At a time when Champagne was going on a couple of questions, Bollinger said, right, this is what we do, and we commit to it. So it's an important date in the company. It's one of the milestones, but everything which was on the charter had been done for ages and ages before. So, but it was reinvigorating.
Okay. Now, we talked about the possibility of both lees age and cork age, and thanks to the great generosity of our friend Mr. Boothby, who looks after you here in Australia, he very kindly brought along a Magnum of 88 RD,
Oh, well,
as one does.
You're a lucky man. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you indeed, Paul. So we better have a quick look at this.
What's the disgorgement date on that one?
I think it's 2000 from memory. It is, May 2000.
Yeah, right, excellent.
So,
well, we see definitely the depth and colour. Huh?
absolutely. I mean,
Sign of a more mature wine.
and 88, I mean, for me, 88 is one of the very greatest of all vintages.
It's a beautiful vintage. It's one of my top personal.
And it's one that
Really love it.
it was a bit deceptive because it didn't get the wraps in the early days, and it's just grown and grown and grown.
It was a bit of an austere vintage. It was discreet, very well balanced between sugar and acid. Quite high level of acid, relatively high level of sugar, not too high though. Interesting thing is that in 1988 we didn't go through malolactic in the barrels, so as a consequence the level of malic acids remained very high, and that's followed through.
Kept it, yeah, absolutely.
What is it now? 22 years? Like
23?
a baby? 23, exactly.
Yeah, and it does. It looks well. I mean, 89 came along, which, as a generalisation rather than specifically about your wine, I mean, it was a much fatter, richer,
Mature,
forward.
hot. Yeah.
Then, of course, 90, which got all the
reviews.
Absolutely, a bit like 96 shadowed 95, and 90 had this wonderful worldwide reputation, which is certainly not undeserved. It's a fantastic year, but then 88 just snuck along, and we see just how fantastic it is.
Moreover, we're having it from Magnum, so
Just gets better and better, doesn't
exactly. Yes. Still a teenager.
It doesn't get much better than that, does it?
We're not spitting, are we?
Oh, look at that. No, that champagne doesn't get much better than that, I don't think. I mean, I'd be very happy to drink that once a year.
We just need a mushroom risotto with that, don't we?
Swig? Yes.
Bollinger and food.
Indeed, absolutely.
Bollinger's very much a food wine.
That would be perfect with it, wouldn't it? But it's got that little sort of truffly hints that are developing.
It has a texture.
Yeah.
And the acidity would cut through the nice fatty, fleshy style of the mushroom risotto.
I think that's just wonderful. I'm quite
as
excited
they say in
about that.
Italy, c'è la vita.
Almost as rare, but perhaps not quite, is
Oh, la Cote Aux Enfants.
your red wine, which, God, you've changed the label of that, haven't you?
Actually, yes, and this is a little bit...
I used to be able to read them.
Yes, well...
That or I'm
actually,
getting
yes.
older.
This is the 2002.
2002, which of
Yes.
course was a great year
It
in
was
Champagne.
a great year altogether, yes, absolutely.
So we...
Thank you.
And for those of you thinking of rushing out and buying a bottle of this, it is available, but there are about 200 cases for the entire world, so good luck.
We're having a bottle.
We just slash the world's resources,
Absolutely,
but
yes.
there are some things that must be done.
That's what we do at Bollinger, during the allocation. Yeah, this is also one of the signature wines of Bollinger. It's Bollinger is very well known for Pinot Noir, which is pretty much the heart of the DNA of the company. We like Bollinger. We're like a Burgundy producer lost in the middle of Champagne. So this is an attempt to produce a high quality wine from Pinot Noir from the Champagne region, from a plot of land called la Cote Aux Enfants, the children's slope, which is just behind the house of Bollinger, in Ailly, facing south. So beautiful exposition, south and southeast.
Yep.
And we get beautiful maturity from these grapes because we pick them at perfect maturity, at least 12, if not 12 and a half sugar potential grams in Champagne, which is quite high, actually very high. And we do a lot of work in the vines. We do green harvest, sorting out at the harvest, green harvest during the vegetative cycle, absolutely,
sure.
and then sorting out of the grapes during the harvest time as we pick, and then we sort them out on tables just to make sure we have the perfect berries, and then we make a cold maceration, and then a long heating up process to, like the Burgundy produces.
I mean, it's not Burgundy, but it's not that dissimilar.
It's not dissimilar,
No.
but we still, we're very modest and humble. It's a great Pinot Noir from Champagne.
Yeah, it's a wonderful wine. And yeah, you wouldn't have seen many better vintages for it than 02, I suspect. 99 maybe.
99 was a great vintage.
Yep.
1990 also
Okay,
with a great vintage.
Yep.
And the thing is,
In fact, I think
we like to taste this. It's a great opportunity to taste it today, Ken. And thank you very much for having had this idea. We sell some of it as a wine,
Sure.
but most of it goes into the elaboration of our Grand Année Rosé, which is a prestige cuvée rosé, which is made by blending from the white blend,
Yes.
to which we add 5 or 6% of this Cote Aux Enfants red wine. So a lot of it is discreetly incorporated as an ingredient into one of the top prestigious rosé vintages in Champagne.
Yep. Yep. No, well, I can see, but it's still nice that you do make a little bit.
Of course. 200 cases, less one bottle.
Less one bottle.
Yes.
We wouldn't have done it if we didn't have to. Stephen, thank you so much for this. Anyone with any queries about the RDs, other than where do you get 88, because I'm not sure you'll be able to tell them that, but please let us know, we'll pass them on. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on Spit Bucket.
Ken, merci beaucoup.
And remember, we spit so you don't have to. And I'm going back to the 88. Cheers.
Cheers.